every lens has an optical ISO. Or the reason why we need to understand this is because every lens has a. Why am I saying optical? The reason why you need to understand. What's going on, guys? Jordan Richards here, back for another video. Now I'm continuing my camera basics series. I went over shutter speed, I went over aperture. If you haven't seen those videos, please go check them out. If it's your first time here, please drop this video a like if you like it and subscribe for future content. But today we're gonna be talking about ISO. Now, what does ISO stand for? I don't even know. I didn't bother to look it up. Truthfully, I can't be bothered. But what ISO is you're adding artificial light to your images. Whether you're shooting video, whether you're taking photos, when you take that ISO and you crank that bad boy, like I could show you right here. If I was to take this ISO, you crank it, you bring it down, you bring it up, it's literally adding fake light and taking away fake light from your images. Like you are literally taking your image and adding a fake light to it. The reason why I need to understand this is because every single lens has an optimal ISO. So you want to have it at a certain ISO, and that's where it performs the absolute best. But when you're in a room like this, super dark, maybe you don't have all these lights, you got to crank that ISO, and what it does is it really distorts your image and makes it look very blurry. So you start to see little pixels, you start to see all this various noise in your images, and that's what it does. Even though it's adding light, it also adds noise that you cannot remove easily from your imaging. You can use a denoiser, you can try and make things better, but ultimately it doesn't really help. In photos, it's not as bad. A lot of cameras are really good now to where you can shoot at 6,000 ISO, 10,000 ISO even sometimes. But at the end of the day, you still may find that graining, that like kind of weird look to your images, and they won't look super clear and the colors won't look accurate because that light isn't real. It's fake artificial light that's being added by the camera in order to brighten the image. And again, this is one really important aspect to photography and videography that most people don't know. If you just set it on auto, if it's not very bright inside, it will look bright, but that's because your ISO may be 6,000, 8,000, and usually once you get up over 5,000, that's when you start to see a lot of graining, a lot of issues with your images, whether it's photos and especially video. Video in particular is really bad when you use ISO on very, very high, very, like, and not even that high. Like for me right now, my ISO is 500, and I even try to stay lower if I can. The rule of thumb is the lower your ISO can be, the better. You want your ISO at 100 because you can't have it at 0 for whatever reason. That's just not how it works. But if you have your ISO at 100, boom, like you're good. Like you don't need to worry about anything. Your image will come out crystal clear, but it'll be dark. Even for me, if I was to lower my ISO to 100, it'd be really, really dark because I don't even have enough light to where an ISO of 100 will work for this lens. It's just not, the aperture isn't wide enough to where I can do that. But if you were to take it, 1600, you might be okay. 2000, some cameras are good enough, you can go to 2000. But when you get much higher, it's very, very difficult to take this type of noise that you're adding to your image out of it. And that's ultimately why you need to understand what that is. When you shoot on auto in a dark room or a dark home or whatever it is, your ISO will be cranked to 6,000, 8,000 like I mentioned, and that's when you start to see that graining, that weird look to some of the darker colors especially. And so that's one thing to pay attention to when you're doing your videos, doing your photos, is look at the blacks, the dark, very, very dark spots of your images. That's usually where you see the noise pop up because it's not the light is artificial and it's constant throughout the whole image. So why am I lightening a black image? It just looks weird, and that's when you get weird graining where they're trying to add light to something where there isn't any. And that's why you notice the noise mostly in the blacks, and that's where you want to be paying attention to your images, your video in particular. Like this video, I get a little bit of noise even from that black wall, but most of the time it's pretty good. And I mentioned like I have a denoiser that I add to my videos a little bit sometimes if it's really bad, but the most optimal scenario is keep it at 400, keep it at 500, keep it, as low as possible. And so when you're able to control that, that's when you get crystal clear photos. That's when you get really nice images and really nice video because you're not adding that artificial noise. So remember that going forward. ISO, it's a very small thing, but if you're shooting on a phone and you're shooting on a camera even, if you're not paying attention to what it is, it may be a lot higher than you think, and that can completely ruin your image when you go to put it in your computer program, whatever it is. So make sure you pay attention to that. Make sure you watch out for that ISO, because if you have it on auto even, then it'll just adjust. And so like I've talked about, you want to have these things set. You want to have those settings dialed in. You want to have your aperture, your shutter speed dialed in all the time. Like I talked about, for me on this camera, I'm shooting on a Canon EOS R. I have my shutter speed at 1/50. I'm shooting f4 and my ISO is set to 500. Again, because I have all these lights, I don't have to add artificial lighting. And that's why I talked about lighting and why you have to have your setup, because then you don't have to worry about, oh, well, if I crank my ISO too high, it's gonna look bad. And some people get away with it. You know, you don't have to use it. You don't have to pay attention to it if you don't want. And ultimately, if it's what you have to do to get the video, do it. But if you can avoid it, be mindful of it, understand what it is. This is ISO. It's just adding fake light, artificial light, and mostly what it does is adds noise to the blacks of your images. So if it's blacks, or like in the instance of this wall, it's a navy, try and get rid of that as much as you can. Understand what ISO is, and if you are shooting manually on a camera, make sure you check out all my videos, because aperture, shutter speed, ISO, that's what you need to understand. And when you understand those three principles, unstoppable. You're unstoppable. You go out, take pictures, boom, boom. You're taking your shutter speed, you're cranking it because you're taking a picture of your child running around. Then you know you want to go shoot a nice sunset, but it's so dark. So you make that shutter speed really low, but then you got to keep that camera extra still, because once you move it, it's going to be blurry. But if you have a camera on a tripod, you want to make that shutter speed 5 seconds. So you're letting tons of time for light to flow in, catch a beautiful sunset. That's why you need to understand all these principles. You understand ISO, understand shutter speed, understand aperture, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. You don't got to worry about a damn thing. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more content. I'm going to try and hit you guys up with some more stuff. I got a bunch of ideas that are on my board right over there. So I hope to get you back soon with some new content. If you guys want any questions or have any comments, feel free to let me know. Drop them in the comments below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, follow me on TikTok too. You know, the links are all in the description, and all the products I use for these videos are in the description as well if anybody wants to check them out. So feel free, and make sure to practice, man. That's just practice. Practice all these things, practice these principles, watch the videos a few times, and if you need clarification, let me know. Again, I'm Jordan Richards. This is my YouTube channel. Please drop this video a like if you liked it, share it, and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.